Namaste, Ji, Namaste. Welcome to Courtroom. Hope you're doing well. So, the following series of lectures was part of our online program for the UPSC law optional. But since we don't teach for that specific subject anymore, I have decided to put all of those lectures from our website on YouTube. So, एक मैं पूरी playlist I'll create it, and then you can check it. You can check the links, etc., in the comments, in the iCard above, etc. And it will really help you in even in your LLM preparation, even in your judiciary preparation and law optional के लिए. So these lectures were specifically created for the law optional. They can also help you for your semester. However, if you're preparing for your LLB entrances, I say skip them because it is too much detail. You'll get confused, and stick to the basics for your LLB entrance. Alright, so I'll create I'll put this clip in front of each and every lecture that will be posted on our channel, so that you can check the playlist, etc., and it makes sense what is happening with these lectures. Alright, so it is a sequence. Try to watch them in a sequence, and hopefully you clear and get very good marks in your optional in the UPSC. Take care. Bye.
Namaste. So now let us resume our discussion on the relationship between the President and the Prime Minister and basically the Council of Ministers. Alright, so the appointment of the Prime Minister, Article 75 rather, Clause 1 says, the Prime Minister shall be appointed by the President. Now, what does that mean? And it's a very frequent question actually. It's a very beautiful question as well. That does that mean that President has full discretion on appointing the Prime Minister? Because that is what 75 Clause 1 says. And a very teda meda, or rather you can say 3 to 4 sort of mutations of this question do appear in the law optional on a very frequent basis. Let us first discuss out the detail, and then I'm going to get to the therefore bit. And basically therefore bit mein we are going to sum up the entire discussion, and that is your answer, and that pretty much is your question as well. And in various other forms this question pops up. Alright, so he's appointed by the President, the Prime Minister. We're starting with the Prime Minister, then we are going to go into the details of appointment of the ministers, then their tenureship, and then basically resume the discussion in the lecture. So appointed by the President, one act which the President performs in his discretion without the advice of the CM or PM. Note this down. So the appointment of the Prime Minister, he doesn't take any advice from the COM. Usually President is bound by the advice of the COM, as we have already discussed, correct? But in this case, this is pretty much, you can say, one of the only functions in which no advice is tendered to him, in theory. Alright. Now in practice, it's a different story altogether. Okay, so write this language down, right? So to keep the fabric of parliamentary government in proper working order, the Council of Ministers, who is headed by the Prime Minister, has to enjoy the confidence of the Lok Sabha. That is what Article 75 Clause 3 says, and we are just going to come to Article 75 as well. Thus, the Council of Ministers is collectively responsible to the Lok Sabha. Write this pointer down, okay? And why is this pointer here? Here is the thing. Therefore, President has to appoint a person as the Prime Minister who has the support and confidence of the Lok Sabha. Now, what does this mean, basically? So, on the one hand, we are saying the President shall appoint the Prime Minister, correct? So, if we are only barely reading that clause, we can say the President has full discretion. But think about the parliamentary form of government, basically, that we have. If a person who doesn't enjoy the confidence of the Lok Sabha, or if there is, let us say, the Council of Ministers is there, such a Council of Ministers is there which does not enjoy the confidence of Lok Sabha, and let us say the President appoints a Council of Ministers that is in the minority, because the PM is also part of the COM, he's just heading it. But let us say that they only enjoy the support of a minority. Will they ever be allowed to function by the Lok Sabha? They can't, right? So technically speaking, so it's all good in theory to say the President shall appoint the PM, but he has to appoint such a PM who enjoys the confidence of the Lok Sabha. That is the absolutely crucial bit. Okay, understand this. So President has to appoint a person as the Prime Minister who has the support and confidence of Lok Sabha. Otherwise, no stable ministry. As I pointed out to you about the ministry, let us say that there is a ministry that only enjoys the confidence of a minority portion of the Lok Sabha. Alright. And this is not that religion वगैरह वाली minority as in numbers वाली minority. And the government cannot function. Therefore, leader of the majority party is most invariably the Prime Minister. So anyone who wins the majority, or in the coalition also, we have the leader of all coalition parties. They are going to tell the President, well, this guy is our leader. He will appoint such a person as the Prime Minister Why? Because he is the guy who is enjoying the majority. Do you understand it now? ठीक है जी? Let us move on to the next page. So in the United Kingdom also, so just to elaborate and put some extra makeup onto your answer, you can write this as well. So in the United Kingdom, the House of Commons, the PM has to be belonging to the House of Commons. That is, jo election hoke, the representatives who have come in. So there are two houses in the UK. That's House of Lords and House of Commons. So similar to our Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha concept. In fact, we have gotten that concept from there only. But in UK, it is an unwritten convention because the United Kingdom doesn't have a written constitution, and a lot of conventions, even in the Indian constitution, they aren't codified. I mean, you can't find them in the Bare Act. Pretty much 90% of the stuff you can find in the Bare Act, but there is 10% such stuff that you will not be able to find in the Bare Act. Those are called conventions, and by those conventions we have to find out from studying and basically logically deducing by reading 2-3 articles together. But in India, it is not barred, write this down, that a member from Rajya Sabha cannot be a Prime Minister. So in the United Kingdom, if the PM is from the House of Lords, basically the PM cannot be from the House of Lords. So you can be a minister certainly, but you cannot be the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister has to necessarily come from the House of Commons. What is House of Commons? House of Commons is from basically the common people who have elected their representatives. House of Lords is something like Rajya Sabha. There is pretty much no direct election happening there. Alright. So in UK, PM hai. But in India, there is nothing in the constitution that bars a person, or rather bars a member of the Rajya Sabha to become a Prime Minister. Do you understand? We'll just come to the articles. In fact, we are going to see the provision is almost, we have reached it. Cannot be a PM, but it is desirable. It is desirable that the Prime Minister be from the Lok Sabha, because otherwise, how will the will of the people be properly expressed? So in the case of, you can write this down, Indira Gandhi 1996 and Manmohan Singh 2004. Both were from 1966 rather, not 1996. Both were from Rajya Sabha, went on to become Prime Minister, and there was some general public outcry as well. Ki bhaiya ye kaun hai? Correct? So that is why it is desirable that the Prime Minister belongs to the Lok Sabha. Alright. Now, a minister from Rajya Sabha has a right to participate in the proceedings of Lok Sabha. So pretty much, let us say that you are a member of Rajya Sabha and then you become a minister. You can participate in Lok Sabha. That is what 88 says, right? Right of ministers and Attorney General as respects houses. Every minister and the Attorney General of India shall have the right to speak and otherwise to take part in the proceedings of. So he won't have a vote, right? Either house, any joint sitting and any committee of parliament of which he may be named a virtue, but shall not by virtue of this article be entitled to vote. So quote Article 88 and link it to how the PM can be from Rajya Sabha and how basically doesn't really affect, because he can participate in the proceedings of the Lok Sabha as well. His primary domain basically for the PM, his primary work belongs to the Lok Sabha, right? But in the United Kingdom, a member from House of Lords, you cannot, and if you're not basically a member of the House of Commons, you're not allowed to be a PM. So therefore, we differ from the UK in this convention. Thus, the convention in UK, basically common and lord, I believe I've already explained this pointer to you. Therefore, the President's power to appoint the PM is controlled by will of the majority of the Lok Sabha. Write this crucial point down. So they can ask you this question. President's power to appoint the Prime Minister is controlled by the will of the majority in the Lok Sabha. Elucidate. Therefore, you are going to quote 75, you're going to quote 88, and you are going to give this lambi chaudi kahani that we have just discussed, and you will have a pretty much beautiful answer. But the answer doesn't end there. We'll have to insert more and more pointers that we are just coming to right now. Okay, so in a coalition now, we have already discussed whoever has the majority and whoever is the leader, therefore becomes the PM, correct? What happens in a coalition? President has no option but to induct the acknowledged leader of the coalition. President के पास क्या option है? I mean, there is no clear-cut majority, right? There's a coalition government, or a lot of parties have come together and they are claiming the majority. So whoever is the acknowledged leader, President will appoint him as the Prime Minister. Why so? again to enjoy the support of the majority or to enjoy the confidence of the Lok Sabha, right? So in 1977 this happened. Janata Party, the leader was one which was, I believe, was Morarji Desai. Then the Janata Party, basically that coalition broke off. In 1979 Chaudhry Charan Singh, hamare Meerut wale, there's a CCS university Meerut, right? Delhi and North India, majority of lawyers were from that university. So in 1979 Chaudhry Charan Singh, even though he enjoyed the minority numbers in Lok Sabha, basically the confidence of the minority numbers in the Lok Sabha, was supported by Congress from the outside. Therefore, what do you mean by supported by the Congress from the outside? That means basically the Congress doesn't want to be a part of the Council of Ministers in his cabinet, etc. So they are supporting you from the outside. So you have the numbers. He was appointed by the PM. Just giving you minor pointers to expand on in the answer. I really don't, it's really not relevant whether you end up remembering or anything, but it's my duty to teach. And even if you can recall like 70% of this stuff in the exam, I'm pretty much happy. All right. So there is no pressure to recall each and every point and then mention each and everything. If you can, well, great. If you can't, but do mention the most important bits. ठीक है जी. So therein he didn't enjoy any absolute majority, but he had more numbers than Morarji Desai that time. Chaudhry Charan Singh we're talking about. So there was no absolute majority for him, for Chaudhry Charan Singh. But for the next candidate who could have been invited to be the PM, that is Morarji Desai, Chaudhry Charan Singh ji enjoyed more numbers. So therefore, President has no option ki bula lega aapko, ki aa jaiye, please form the government, right? So President invited CCS, that is Chaudhry Charan Singh, and basically asked him to prove his majority by taking a vote of confidence in the Lok Sabha. Congress, withdrew, and CCS became the minority. He advised the president to prorogue the House, and therefore, he is now till date only Prime Minister who was in power and he didn't obtain a vote of confidence or face the Lok Sabha. Basically, the COM never really faced the Lok Sabha. This is basically a pretty popular MCQ for right. So who is the only Prime Minister who didn't enjoy the confidence of the Lok Sabha? Remember, so he's getting the House prorogued. So the President asked the Council of Ministers कि भाई रुक जाओ, थोड़ा सा रुक जाओ, ताकि अब अगली government के लिए, otherwise how will I function, right? So CCS then later on resigned, but President asked the Council of Ministers to stay till other arrangements. So this Council of Ministers pretty much is the only body that remained without enjoying the confidence of the Lok Sabha MCQ. MCQ aata hai, but I don't think that it's your level that you're going to ever write this. So this is basically known as, or rather has been labeled on numerous occasions by the Supreme Court as a very dark day in democracy, because if a Council of Ministers is not enjoying the power of the Lok Sabha, or rather not enjoying the confidence of the Lok Sabha, and you still are in power, well, bloody hell, this is crazy stuff. So that happened once upon a time, and only once this has happened. Okay. Now, when Indira Gandhi was assassinated, President Zail Singh, who was president at that time, he appointed Rahul Gandhi as the Prime Minister, even though Rahul Gandhi was not yet formally elected as the leader of the Congress party, who was enjoying the majority numbers in the Lok Sabha back then. But then it was basically a technicality, and it was an extreme situation wherein this was done. If you can mention this, great. Can't mention, it's okay. We are just going to come to the case laws as well. Now, in 1989, VP Singh had 176 out of 520 numbers. BJP supported from the outside, and then they withdrew. Again, VP was given time to prove the majority, and then the same fate as with Chaudhry Charan Singh, etc. This kept on repeating. But in 1991, PVR Narasimha Rao had 251 out of 528. He was invited to form the government and be the PM by the president, and he was given 4 weeks time to establish the majority. So given some time to. अगर ऐसी कोई situation है where there is no clear-cut majority, right, and you are like missing the majority by the narrowest of margins, the president is going to invite you to form the government, but it's going to give you a time. So in 4 weeks, he was asked to prove the majority in the Lok Sabha. He did, and then he continued basically to be the Prime Minister for 5 years, and pretty much that was the best era. Basically, the economy, etc., was opened up. It was quite a lot of liberalization, leaving our socialist roots behind. In 1996, Congress had 135 out of 520 seats. BJP had the numbers 162. United Front had 178. That was a coalition. So President invited the BJP to form the government, but he gave Atal Bihari Vajpayee 15 days to prove majority in the Lok Sabha, because remember, the Prime Minister has to enjoy the confidence of the Lok Sabha, correct? So you'll have to prove it as well. If you don't have the numbers on paper in a majority, you're going to prove it, right? So it's vote of confidence. Atal Bihari Vajpayee then resigned in 13 days. Then United Front say Devi Gowda ji aaye the. Devi Gowda was invited and he became the Prime Minister for 2 years. Before again they were in minority and couldn't really prove their government. 998 Atal Bihari Vajpayee, he won the vote of confidence at times, and sometimes the Deputy Prime Minister is basically, कभी ऐसी वाली सिचुएशन में और कोई परम्यूटेशन कॉम्बिनेशन निकले, deputy prime minister is asked to take oath, but there is deputy prime minister is not a constitutional post because he is nowhere mentioned in the constitution. Okay, now hopefully it is clear. So these are just fillers for your answer. If you can quote the example of Chaudhary Charan Singh, great. If you can quote the example of Atal Bihari Vajpayee, great. You know, either of these two examples you can just quote to relate it to the prime minister being the person who enjoys the majority, or rather who enjoys the confidence of the majority in the Lok Sabha. All right. Now, appointment of ministers. Other provisions as to ministers. So let us first and foremost discuss Article 75. The prime minister shall be appointed by the president. Now, you see, and the other minister shall be appointed by the president on the advice of the prime minister. Hopefully it is clear. I don't think that I need to say anything anymore. And since this clause is there, that is 75 clause 1, the prime minister shall be appointed by the president. So isko padh ke lagta hai, you know, that maybe the president has some discretion. BJP tells Modi ji ko PM banaiye, maybe he appoints Advani ji. Sorry, none of that is happening. The prime minister has to enjoy the confidence of the majority numbers in the Lok Sabha. That is how he will be allowed to function pretty much. Okay. Now, the crucial bit with the appointment of ministers is a minister who for any period of 6 consecutive months is not a member of either house of the parliament shall at the expiration of the period cease to be a minister. Now, hang on here. We need to discuss a couple of case laws relating to this clause. So, mark it in your bare act. Achha, clause 6 bhi padh lijiye. The salaries and allowances of ministers shall be such as parliament may from time to time by law. So, the which law? It is Salaries and Allowances Ministers Act 1952. तो ये आप लिख सकते हैं if you want. Otherwise given in second schedule. Actually second schedule में वो थोड़ी general terminology use करके आपको बताएगा, but there is जहाँ पे भी wherever in the bare act it's by law, right? So there has to be an act that the parliament must have passed. Okay. Now, after barely, reading 75 and 88, when we combine both of these articles, so 88 again, not going to get into it. We've already discussed about the proceedings, etc. There is no condition that the Prime Minister has to be a member of the House. Now, when we say a minister who for any period of 6 consecutive months is not a member of either House of Parliament shall at the expiration of that period cease to be a minister, does that include the Prime Minister? Yes, because COM actually includes the Prime Minister. Prime Minister is just their head. So he's not above the COM, he's part of the CM. So you can say he's like the class representative in a pool of ministers. So he's the prime-most minister. Alright. So a minister who for any period of 6 consecutive months is not a member of either house. So can a person who is not a member of either house of parliament, can he be a PM? Yes. Okay. So there is no condition. 75 does not bar it, and 88 already is allowing you to participate in the proceedings of either house, correct? So there is no bar. So the term minister in 75 clause 5, it includes a PM, and the PM obviously is answerable to the house. Example, Shri H.D. Devegowda was such a case. Okay. Now write this case law down. S.R. Chaudhary versus State of Punjab. This is a very crucial case law, very recent one as well, AIR 2001. The question that was raised was, when a minister who is not a member of the either house resigns after 6 months because he failed to become a member of one house basically, can he be reappointed as a minister for another term of 6 months? Because 75 is silent on this. Do you understand? Let us say that you are a minister and you are not a member of the either house. 75 clause 5 says कि 6 महीने के अंदर your membership to either house has to be confirmed. Else, you'll have to resign as a minister. Recently, when I'm shooting this video in 2021, who is such a case? S. Jaishankar. Then he was basically made a member of the Rajya Sabha and it was challenged in the Supreme Court right now, but we need not go there. So, can he be reappointed as a minister? Answer. There is no bar, basically no limitation in 75 clause 5, but The Supreme Court held it undemocratic because that will defeat the very purpose of the Constitution, right? 75 clause 5 is an exception to the regular scenario of a minister has to be a member of the House, but 75 clause 5 ने एक exception create करी हुई है that within 6 months भैया अगर नहीं भी हो तो 6 महीने के अंदर अंदर ले आए. It's just like a provisional admission that will be granted basically to anyone, or rather is granted to anyone in any university as well, correct? That अगर आपके पास अभी final paper नहीं है तो you get some time, 3, 4, 5 months to please produce those, otherwise your admission is cancelled. Pretty much 75 clause 5 is there. So can you actually continue college for those 3 months and basically keep on continuing in college कि अभी जी आपने 3 महीने allow करा था, now allow 3 months again. So it will basically defeat the purpose of that provisional admission, correct? So same case here. So same at the state level as well. Basically 164 clause 4 is there, not allowed. So 164 clause 4 वाले भैया कौन है? BR कपूर वर्सेस स्टेट ऑफ तमिलनाडु. पिछला वाला लिख लिया, क्या था जी केस लो, एक बार दोबारा देख लेते हैं. SR Chaudhary versus State of Punjab, herein BR Kapoor versus State of Tamil Nadu, again a 2001 case law. A person not a member of either house can be a PM, but he needs to meet the requirements of Article 84 and 102. Now what is 84? Qualification for the membership of Parliament, qualification for the membership of the Parliament, and 102. I don't think that I'm going to read these out for you. So basically, these are the basic qualifications, and 102 talks about disqualification. So you can be a PM if you're not a member of the either house, but you also have to meet the requirements of 84 and 102. You're not exempt, and you can continue on for 6 months, but you have to basically gain a membership. And let us say that you fail to gain a membership, can you be re-elected as a minister? No. Okay, hopefully it is clear, right? Just have a cursory look at 84, 102. I don't think it's of any significant importance for the purposes of our discussion as of right now. So 75 clause 1, ministers basically are nominees of the Prime Minister. President has no choice. So if Modi ji says Smriti Irani back then will be my textile minister, or let us say Amit Shah will be my home minister, the president can't say no. President cannot say no, you bring Advani ji as the home minister, I will not appoint him. Sorry, he has no discretion, absolutely none. And the 91st Amendment placed a bar. Basically it said ministers including PM cannot exceed 15% of the total members of the Lok Sabha. Basically this is now a limitation on the size of the Council of the Ministers. Okay, now ministerial tenure, the ministers shall hold office during the pleasure of the President. The Council of Ministers shall be collectively responsible to the House of the People. Isn't this a sort of a paradox? On one end you are saying the ministers shall hold office during the pleasure of the President. That means they are at the whim and fancy of the President. That is what it's saying. Clause 3 is saying the Council of Ministers shall be collectively responsible to the House of the People. So they are in office as long as they are enjoying the House of the People. Who the hell is the President? Question. This is the question on the law optional level. Explain this irony. Now let us explain this irony. Okay. Now, where is the doctrine of the pleasure of the President given? Article 310. I'm sure that if you have prepared sufficiently well enough for your prelims, you would already be knowing the concept that anyone whose removal procedure is expressly provided for the Constitution is not at the pleasure of the President. Rest everyone is. Alright, so for example, a Supreme Court judge, the CAG, etc., everyone's removal procedure is expressly provided for in the Constitution, so they are not at the pleasure of the President. For example, the Vice President, again, the removal procedure is given. Everybody else is at the pleasure of the President, including the PM, including the Council of Ministers. But in this case, the Council of Ministers shall be collectively responsible to the House of People. Okay. Now the Council of Ministers का जो office है, that's basically it enjoys the confidence of the majority in the Lok Sabha. Now tenure of the ministry is determined by the House. Prima facie दिख रहा है is determined by the President. Ex facie there is an inconsistency here. Now let us take an example. Let us say President dismisses a ministry who enjoys the confidence of the House. Write this down. He needs to install a new ministry because, as we discussed in the previous lecture, there has to be a Council of Ministers, correct? So if you are dismissing one ministry that is enjoying the confidence of the House, you will get another ministry that does not enjoy the confidence of the House. Hopefully it is clear. I am dismissing a ministry that is enjoying the majority, basically the numbers in the House. I am dismissing them as the President. So I will need another body of council of ministers, and that definitely is not going to enjoy the majority. क्योंकि majority वालों को तो we have said bye bye to, correct? Now he needs to install a new ministry that will enjoy basically the minority numbers in the house. It won't be able to carry out any policy, and president के ऊपर लगेगी impeachment proceedings. By who? By those who he just dismissed. The council of ministers that he just said bye bye to will initiate the impeachment proceedings against him. This is why that impeachment proceeding clause is there in the constitution. As we discussed, it was what? The word was salutary. It was needed, right? So therefore it's proven. Now, the president's power to remove a minister, it may be invoked by a prime minister against a minister who has lost his confidence. Now, this is a convention, and this is in fact a very pretty popular prelims ka nahi, just a LLB entrance ka question, that the minister will be removed by the president on the advice of the prime minister. It's a convention basically. It's not quoted anywhere in the Bare Act, and this keeps flying out left, right, and center. It may be invoked by the PM. Usually the ministers, they resign. But this is a last resort. But let us say that the minister becomes very khuser and he says, well, I'm not going. Who the hell are you, Modi? I'm not going anywhere. So in that case, the PM can advise the president to remove the minister. Why? And how come? And how is this possible? Because that minister is at the pleasure of the president. That is why the clause is there. Otherwise, the council of ministers stays till the time that it enjoys the confidence of the Lok Sabha. But in the worst case scenario, let us say there is one minister who is acting against the prime minister, and the prime minister wants him to go, but he won't resign. The PM will just write to the president that remove him, and he will be removed because he's at the pleasure of the president, right? So this is a democratic convention. On advice of the PM, the president removes a minister, the prime minister makes a minister, so therefore he has the power to unmake a minister as well. Okay. So usually a minister resigns. This is an emergency case scenario, exceptional situation. It's an ultimate resort. Okay. Phew. So that's about it. So in the next one, we're going to come to the working of the executive and how the president is a titular head. What is a titular meaning? That person who has some, who has status, etc., but has pretty much no real power. As we have already seen, everything is being done by PM and COM. President Saab is basically, is surrounded by all four corners. So this is now lecture number 2. We are going to go into 3 and 4 and basically complete out the Rishta Kya Kehlata Hai of PM and COM. ठीक है जी, now see you in the successive lectures. Take care. Bye.